right. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Coffee Chat. Today, we're brewing up an amazing conversation on entrepreneurship, leadership, and mentorship. Today, I have an amazing guest, Miss Tatiana. She is the founder of Our Power Media. It's a communications and media company here in Houston. So if you're in Houston, we're going to check it out. Also, super excited. We're diving into what it means to own your power, pivot with grace, and tell stories that move people. Welcome to the Coffee Chat.
Thank you for having me. It feels weird being on this side of things. Usually I'm in that chair.
It's so funny because I actually met you when you were hosting, you were emceeing at the Blackest Tech Conference. So it is cool to be on the other side of things, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want you to tell us a little bit about Our Power Media, what you guys do, and like how you help the community.
Sure. So Our Power Media, I started officially a year ago, and we do communications advising as well as media production.
Okay.
I have my background in TV production. So I was a TV producer before I moved here to Houston. And it was literally 2 weeks before the writer's strike and the whole industry kind of got flipped upside down. And so I had to figure out, okay, well, what is the service that I provide outside of that?
Okay.
And so I also came from news media as well prior to doing TV production. And so I started helping small businesses get media placements. And so I'm like, oh, okay, that's PR and communications. And then people saw that I also record my own content. And, I'm a videographer and an editor. So then that's how it was like, okay, we'll do the communication side. And then we also have the media side. So we also do like event recaps. We help people tell their stories. So whether that is podcasts and stuff like this, we do those kind of productions as well.
Oh my gosh. So all I'm hearing is you pivoted and you used the skills that you had to launch an entrepreneurship journey.
Yes.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Well, shout out to you for that, because a lot of people don't have the courage to do things like that. And
life will give you the courage.
That's what started my podcast. I'm like, I got to figure it out, and I got to use the talents that I have. So it's very inspiring to hear that that's how you got your journey and how you are a year into something new for you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I know one of the conversations that we had off camera was that you're actually an introvert.
Yeah, very much so.
So when I saw you emceeing, when I saw you, or just even starting a business to help people tell their own story, like where did that come from? Or how did you get the courage to say, I know that I'm introverted, but I want to help people who are like me. And I also want to push myself to speak in front of people.
Yeah. You know how... I feel like one of those rappers that, my third grade teacher didn't believe in me. It's kind of like that, really. So when I went to college, I originally went for math.
Okay.
And another pivot, I realized once I got to Duke, it was like Duke math is very different from the math that I grew up loving. It's not quite the little 2 + 2 is 4. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to need to pick a different major because I'm not going to make it 4 years doing this. And I eventually decided upon theater because that was something I always enjoyed doing anyways. And once I got my new faculty advisor in the theater department, he told me in our very first meeting, he said, you're not going to make it in this industry.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Really?
I was like, nobody tells me what I can and cannot do.
Learn.
And so I was like, well, why do you say that? He's like, you're too shy. He's like, he said, this industry is about who you know, not what you know. And if you can't go in a room and light that room up and have everybody know who you are by the time you leave, you're not going to make it in this industry.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, I got some learning to do. And so for a month, I challenged myself to go to as many networking events as I could. Pretty much every day I went to a different event.
Okay.
And forced myself to meet at least one person.
Okay.
Because that was a lot. Meeting one person to have a conversation with one stranger.
Initiating one conversation.
And then it eventually got to the point where I didn't even have to initiate anymore. That I would just show up. And I mean, I'm 5'9" and I'm usually, glammed up, wearing something nice.
Yeah.
I learned that I can literally just show up, stand in the center of the room and just smile and just be myself and people will come to me.
Yeah.
And then that took a lot of the pressure off because then it was like, I can be the one to reject people and be like, your energy's off. I'm going to look at this person and talk to them instead. So yeah, so that's how I started kind of coming out of my shell. And that was 15 years ago. So I've had 15 years of practicing how to.
Congratulations. Because I will say myself, you definitely radiate throughout the room. Like you were such a great host. You were such a great presenter, such a great speaker. That's why I came up to you afterwards and I was like, I have to talk to you. So again, it does work. It's like you made me want to come
here
up.
We are.
And here we are. I'm an extrovert, but we're making it work up here.
Right.
So since then, you've built a few brands, right? Since you started your company about storytelling. And I would love for you to just give us some examples of what you do for some of your, what do you call them?
Clients?
Okay, for some of your clients.
Sure. So, for example, I actually just finished this morning creating a video promo for an event that's coming up. And it's for a real estate development company, and they host these events. I wouldn't say it's annually, I guess maybe quarterly. They have these events promoting home ownership amongst Black men.
Okay. So do you primarily work with a lot of Black businesses, or is it?
Primarily, I'm starting to branch out more, but I like to be mission aligned with the people I work with, because we were just talking about prior to starting the podcast, we were talking about content, and people were like, oh, I just need some content.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of power behind media. There's a lot of power behind story. As we see now with everything that's going on and how they're trying to silence media, it's very powerful. And so I don't necessarily want to put the power of media behind something I don't believe in. Black people typically I happen to be aligned with. But so for this particular client, we were at the Forbes Black Conference in Atlanta, and I had recorded a site visit they did for one of the speakers who will be at their event. So then I just edited together kind of a promo video that highlights that speaker, but then also advertises the event. I also happened to randomly run into Tyrese, the singer, and I made a mini documentary for him, like a behind the scenes.
I saw that on your link. I was like, she doing everything right now.
I was just getting content. And Tyrese was like, oh, did you get that? Can I see? Oh, that looks good. You know what? Can you record?
Oh my gosh, that's super cool. Wow. So I know another part of what you do is like communication and the storytelling piece as well. And I feel like with the storytelling, you have to showcase as well as like teach confidence. Because I know there are a lot of people who don't like to talk on camera, who don't like to talk in front of crowds. So tell us a little bit about that part of what you do.
Yeah, so now we're living in an age where it's kind of hard to be a faceless business. You know, back in the day, you didn't know who was running the businesses.
Who Home Depot, we don't know.
Well, but we know some things about them.
Yes.
But nowadays, with content being such a large part of marketing and branding, people tend to steer towards businesses that they have a face for, that they're like, that person looks like me, or that person shares my values. I want to support them. I mean, of course, that's not across the board. Even just with Red Lobster and seeing their new CEO, like Black folks are like, okay,
we want to get that crowd.
A lot of business owners that went into business not wanting to be the face of their business are starting to realize, like, okay, I need to either be the face virtually, digitally, or I need to go out and do press appearances. And if you're not used to that, it can be very daunting. And so what I do with the Confidently Captivating webinar series is I teach some business owners, but then there's also like just general introverts. Like some of the people on the call are people who are like work a 9 to 5, but they're like, yeah, so I have to make a presentation at work and I really don't want to do it.
that sounds about right there.
And so, you know, I basically break down the psychology behind why public speaking is one of the greatest fears that most people have. And it's all because of being perceived. It's all the idea of I'm putting myself out there and someone might reject it. People are going to see me for who I am, are going to see what I say, what I do, and they might not like it. It's very different from if they don't like the business. Well, they don't like the business. But it's like, no, this is me and they don't like me. And there's also a lot of like childhood, I don't want to say the word trauma because it's not always trauma, but there's a lot of childhood conditioning that also comes with what it takes to speak your truth. And that if you were the loud one and people say, oh, you're so weird. Like, oh my God, you're always talking. Then people start to learn to not talk. Or you get in trouble because you get the mark on your paper that, oh, talks too much in class. Like, I'm sure because you're an extrovert. Sure, that was you. And so then you start to learn, especially Black people, we start to learn to tone it down. So my mission is to find those people who are introverted because of those reasons and bring it back out.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I think that that's really powerful. There are so many people that need that. And this, like you said, this is a day and age where it's like, if you are not networking, if you are not getting in front of people and speaking or sharing your story, then you are kind of getting left behind, especially as a business owner. So do you work with small businesses most often? Is that who you're working with?
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag.
I'm starting to shift more into larger organizations now.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do love working with small businesses just because there's that like camaraderie of like, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
But especially in this economy,
gotta scale. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I love that. I definitely love the webinars, and I have some friends that I know are introverts that I'm one of those networkers, right? I'm the person who just finds fun and going to networking events by myself and talking to as many people as I can. But I do have a lot of friends that share that, you know, they're introverted and it's not as comfortable or they don't know how to break the ice. So I definitely want to recommend that they come to your webinar so that they can learn a little bit more about, you know, just building that personal confidence and just recognizing that other people want to hear from them too. Like we all have a voice. So
yeah. And there's also a lot of introverts are also neurodivergent. And that's something that I'm starting to learn this year too. And that people who have certain neurodivergence get overwhelmed very easily. You know, their brain is thinking a mile a minute. And so they're taking everything in. So when you're at an event networking, you're hearing every conversation that's happening around you and you're overwhelmed and you're just like, they're going to think I'm weird. You know, I'm also speaking from experience, you know, and so a lot of that introversion comes from, I just need to go find a quiet place. And I have
to be by yourself.
Yeah. Like I have to stay present with you. So I need to get away.
Yes.
You know,
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So we've been tapping into that as well and like how to regulate that and how to make sure you breathe and center yourself. And if you need to step away and come back.
Taking breaks. You don't have to talk every time.
Right.
I'm going to talk every time. You are gonna run from me. Okay, so I know we kind of talked about like pivoting, and one of the things that I've had throughout my conversations on a podcast is just the podcast has been the art of pivoting. And when we talked off camera, I keep bringing up off camera, you said that pivoting saved your career. So I would love for you to just expound on that and talk about which pivot, right? Because there have been multiple pivots.
So many.
Which one was the hardest one and which one you found most rewarding?
Ooh, which was the hardest one? The hardest one definitely was the moving to Houston. Because I've pivoted so much, like even just from back in college, changing my major from math to theater, which is complete opposite worlds. But yeah, I've pivoted so much. My childhood sweetheart that I was dating in high school, he ended up passing away from sickle cell complications when we were 24, almost 25. And so like that was like another big pivot of having to basically grieve the life I thought I was going to have with him. And
I think that's a part of every pivot.
Right.
Grieving like what you thought you knew for certain and being like, oh, I got to start over.
Yeah.
Obviously not to that degree.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and every time you lose a loved one, there's a pivot, whether it's, you know, someone you thought you were going to marry or someone you did marry or a parent or a child or a friend. There's always that pivot because now you have to shift into what a life would look like without someone who was very pivotal to who you were. No pun intended. And so that was another big pivot. And that also kind of woke me up to, okay, life is short. And you're wasting time. And at that time, because I was pursuing theater, I was auditioning a lot and I wasn't really booking anything. Once again, I'm 5'9". Being a Black woman is already a deterrent for getting certain roles. But being a 5'9" Black woman, when you get called back and you see all the men are like 5'5". Yeah. Okay. You're like, well, I'm not booking this one.
That's like dating.
But see, in dating, I could decide, I want to date someone.
And they like, but
as a casting director, especially when you're young and you're tall, tall also means mother. The child is short.
Really?
Yeah. So if you have a young face and a young voice, but you're tall, it's like, you're too young to be the mom, but you're too tall to be the daughter. So there were just a lot of barriers. And so after he passed, it was like, okay, I need to really like figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Pivoted into corporate. Anyways, we're going to skip through that chapter. And then eventually after that is when I got into, I was like, I need to get back to my creative roots. And that's how I got into TV production and event production and all of that. But it started with event production, pandemic.
Okay.
So, event production's over. Now what? Pivot into then doing virtual events.
Okay.
Did the virtual events, and that's how I got into digital news media, from digital news media, TV production. And I finally was like, all right, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is my lane. I'm good at this. I thrive at this. I enjoy it. I mean, put a camera in my hand and put a person in front of me and I will make sure that they have the best, whatever it is they want to get. And so things had changed a lot in New York because of the pandemic, and rents were going up crazy and things were all my favorite spots.
So you were living in
New York City, born and raised in New York.
Okay.
And I was in Harlem at the time, and they decided to raise the rents because they had frozen the rents for a year. So landlords lost out on that money.
During COVID.
And so then at the end of that year, they were like, all right, cool. So now rent's starting back up again and everyone owes a year worth of back pay.
What?
Yeah. Now I had to pay the whole time. My rent never got frozen, but for all of the landlords that lost money, now of course their tenants aren't going to be able to pay that. Right. So they either got evicted or they just picked up and left. And so then the city said, well, there's usually a 10% cap on how much you can raise a rent. We're getting rid of that. Do what you need to do to recoup your costs. People's rent started doubling. So I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, I got 3 months.
I'm gone.
I said, my lease is up in 3 months. Let me start shopping around. And so I had been hearing things about Houston. I had been seeing the TikToks. And then I had some friends who were from Houston who moved to New York and just randomly were like, you would do well in Houston. I was like, where did that come from? And then I ended up getting asked to book. They didn't even tell me why. They just said. But I ended up getting asked to do an artist development workshop in Dallas. And 3 of the 4 artists were from Houston. So I was like, I'm
connection. Yeah.
I was like, okay, God, you're whispering something. And then at the time I had someone I thought was a friend that I had met virtually through a business that he had that I was very aligned with, and I had been helping him with that business. And he'd been helping me, giving me business tips and stuff, a lot of which I've had to unlearn since then. But anywho, so he was just like, yeah, come down to Houston. Like, I got you. So I'm like, okay, I have no family there, but I got this one friend. I'm going to be good. I'm going to take a leap of faith. Sure enough, my rent went up. I was like, all right, bye.
We're like, I'm going.
And I got to Houston.
So you feel like that was a strategic move for you or a panic move?
It was both.
It was both.
So I had been wanting to move out of New York for a while.
I feel like a lot of New Yorkers sometimes are lifers.
Yeah, but see,
depending on your age, I would say depending on your age.
Well, also, but I'm not a New Yorker at heart.
Okay.
My dad is from the Bolton, North Carolina, like dirt road.
Okay.
They just got Wi-Fi a few years ago. So I was raised by country, even though I was raised in New York. So I never quite fit into city life. It says that
I'm born and raised.
Wait till I get on the phone with my mom. She's from Queens, and
he comes out.
Let me drink some of my water. He comes out when I'm talking to other people from New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also, when I'm talking to my relatives, I sound real country.
That's funny.
So I never really enjoyed city life. I always was like, I'm going to need to move at some point. But then when the pandemic happened, it was like, okay, now's not the time to be moving.
Pushed you.
Yeah, it forced me to stay.
Yeah.
And then it forced me to leave.
You to leave.
So it was kind of a panic move. But then also it was if I go somewhere else with my New York drive and my New York mentality, I'll be able to thrive the way I'm not, I was kind of thriving there, but because of the pandemic, things were a little iffy. So I get to Houston, and then the writer's strike happened.
Oh, wow.
And I had gigs lined up, and I was going to fly back and forth and look for work here in Houston while flying to New York to do a gig and come back. All of that disappeared. And I was like, great. Now I don't have my family. Now I don't have my community.
Gosh.
Yeah. So that was the hardest pivot. And then the one person I thought I had, girl, sometimes you got to learn the hard way, or that not every friend is really a friend.
Oh, wow.
I had to do a deep dive on narcissistic personality disorder.
God, that was a moment. You had to go through a couple heartbreaks.
2023, when I tell you I hit some of my lowest moments, but I'm glad I did.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I've grown so much since then. So yeah, that was the hardest pivot and the one I learned the most.
So during that time, right, you're here in Houston, no family, falling out with your friend, can't do you can't do anything because there's a writer's strike. How do you give yourself grace during that time?
Oh, I didn't.
You did it. Now that is real. That's the real.
So hard on myself. I was having crash outs and breakdowns every other day. I did have a therapist. I was shopping around for a therapist. The one I had at first wasn't really the best fit, but eventually I found one that okay.
Amazing.
And then I found community.
That's really important.
Yeah, even though I had to block the one person, thankfully I kind of was able to get some of his tribe.
Yeah. You do have some good people around you.
Listen, only the women. As we're just a trifling, but the women, I love us. We got each other's back, and I love it. So community definitely helped remind me to give myself grace. And it also helped ground me when I felt very ungrounded. I didn't have the things that normally kept me grounded, like family and community and the city that I know how to navigate. Now I'm in a strange place. I really felt like I was floating, untethered, but then they helped ground me. And so, yeah.
I just want to say it's something about Houston that I just love, because I went through something similar. I moved here in 2021. I had no friends, no family. And it was when I started to build community that I started to feel much more grounded. There are a lot of opportunities to build community here because, one, there are a whole bunch of transplants, right? But you can find some really good people that are aligned with you. And it just makes your experience way better, especially when you get out of like the party phase. I don't know if you went through that when you got here.
A little bit, but not really.
But once you get out of that phase and you're like around superficial people and you actually find people that are aligned with you, it definitely makes a difference on your experience. And it also opens your eyes to what else is out there. That's what I feel like. I found a lot of connections, and I found like my world has gotten bigger through the community that I've built here and continuing to build.
I'm trying so hard not to jump in your seat, but I want to be like, so what brought you here?
Well, just needing a change post-COVID. And I always wanted to move to Texas. I thought I wanted to move to Dallas. And I came to Houston. I was like, oh no, Houston, this is my vibe. Like, it's fast, it's my vibe. And I just love that there was so much Black excellence. Like, of course, the vibes, 10 out of 10, party, you do whatever. During COVID, it was open, so it was appealing to everybody. But it was the ability to see people like me doing amazing things. And I knew that that's somewhere that I wanted to be myself.
Same.
So it's amazing that I'm here and I'm like connecting with people, and even just like sitting down having this conversation with you. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you've done so much. And it's in a field that I've never even like delved into or learned about. And just learning about your entrepreneurship journey has been very inspiring too. But I know we're talking about pivoting, but most people, they cling to stability when it's time to move. I don't know. What are your thoughts around that? Like,
I believe that wholeheartedly. And I was clinging on to stability until stability disappeared.
Yeah, I feel like God just been pushing me off cliffs. And that's how
it happens.
That's how I feel like it's been happening for me. I'm like, well, you don't want to do it. Oh, you about to get laid off. So now you got to figure out what you want to do with your life, because you cannot go down that lane, or, you are sitting. I feel like for myself, I was sitting on my talents. I was sitting on my ideas, and I was sitting on my skills, and God had to take away the thing that brought me the most security that I could distract myself with and say, like, this is my pinnacle. This is my top. As long as I have this, I don't need anything else, like, corporate, right? And then to be put in a position where you no longer have that, and you have to relearn your own identity and figure out what's next for you. You have to pivot, like, you have no choice but to pivot. Right. And so I definitely can resonate with you on the pivot and the starting something new and something different, and you leveraging, what you learned in those jobs and what you learned in those roles and what you learned from your experience, and how can I use my gifts and my talents to help other people. And
it all carries. It all carries up.
It definitely does. So one of the things that I feel like as I'm talking to you is like, you have a lot of purpose and you do it with soul, right? And media, visibility, purpose, all of those things align. So what made you start our media? What gap did you see for others?
So when I first basically everything I've always done has always had some kind of purpose or meaning behind it. Because I feel like if it's not bettering this experience that we're all in, if it's not bettering someone else's life, why are we even doing it? And so that's always been my through line. That's how I was raised in the church that I grew up in and the family that I grew up in. My mom's a social worker. Both of my parents were Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
Hi,
Okay.
Mom.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
But both of my parents were scout leaders, Boy Scout, Girl Scout. My mom was on the president of the board of my church. I grew up in a very community-based, like, if it's not helping other people, why are you doing it? Of course, there's some downsides to that. There's some people pleasing that comes out of that, of like doing too much for others and not enough for self. And that's something I'm unlearning. But being able to marry that with my business is what's helping with that. So with Our Power Media, I started it because I was working at the Griot. It's a Black-owned news company. And that was when I felt I was doing the work I was most aligned with.
Okay.
The independent contractor, so I could pitch the stories I wanted to pitch and turn down the ones I didn't want to do. And so that was great.
Amazing.
I was doing a lot of explainer series, like Black history, the history of like Black holidays and little known facts. I love me some Fred Hampton. So I always was doing a piece about Fred Hampton every year for his birthday and doing docuseries highlighting small Black owned businesses. And so then when I was no longer working at the Griot, I kept chasing that feeling of like, I want to do that again. Like, how do I find somewhere where I can do that, where I can tell these Black stories and tell these stories that are pushing the culture forward and unlearning. I had a whole series called Cleared Up, where we took myths that people commonly believed and we debunked them and we gave them tools of like, now here's what you need to know and here's what you do with that information. And so I kept applying for jobs, trying to get somewhere that I could do that again. But with the media strikes, no one was hiring. And so I'm like, I'm just going to start creating it. And so I was at Essence Fest last year, 2024. And I remember sitting there thinking there was a bit of a missed opportunity. Like, you got all of these people and it was good. Essence Fest was good. I'm not going to crap on it. It's a lot to do a big event like that regardless. But it was their 35th anniversary and they had all of these people in the space and the conversations felt a little surface level.
Okay.
I remember Aldous Hodge. He's actually in my circle, good dude. But he was promoting Cross.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so he was on a panel, and it was a lot of questions. It was so good. Yeah. There were a lot of questions about like, what's his workout regimen and this and that.
Okay, and you're like,
yeah. I was like, this is good to get people in because it's going to make the ladies come and sit down. But once we're sitting here, give us something.
Yes.
Dive deeper. And I felt like those opportunities were missed. And I was like, if I was 35 years in the game, like, I don't have a business, but if I had a business and I was 35 years in the game, oh man, we would be diving so deep. And so I was like, why don't I have a business? I was like, I need to just start, because if I don't start, I will never be 35 years in the game. So I'm like, all right, as soon as I get back to Houston, I'm going to start this business. But driving back to Houston, I was with those same girls, that community. Yeah. We carpooled to Essence Fest. So we're carpooling back to Houston and a hurricane comes and we're driving through the rain. And then the next morning, I got no power. I go to a coffee because I'm like, I got to write these ideas down.
Like, you're inspired.
I'm like, dang, I got no power. I'm going to go to a coffee shop. We don't have any Wi-Fi. Go to the next coffee shop. We don't have any Wi-Fi. I'm like, no. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I don't care what kind of blockers I'm going to do that have Wi-Fi, and they didn't close till 2 a.m.
Oh,
I
wow.
stayed there until 2 a.m. Came up with the business name, trademarked it, bought the domain, started creating the website, had a business.
Oh my gosh.
In the middle of a hurricane, the day I came back from
Essence. Listen, you were determined. Telling you, man, don't challenge no Black woman. I'll show you that every time. But that's amazing. That's really awesome that you saw the gap, because I also feel similarly as to why I wanted to start my podcast, right? I know it's like everybody got a podcast, but I felt like some of the conversations is like, what do you make an hour? What do you do for work? And I'm like, no, there's so much more that we can get from speaking with people, and so much more we can give to the audience. That's not just, I'm in tech and I make 6 figures. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does your journey really look like? Like, what realistically does that look like for somebody who is starting from zero or starting from scratch, or has skills that they want to use and turn into a business? So it's really good to hear that you did that. Like, you did.
But I'm glad you're doing this podcast.
Thank you.
This is I think this is my first podcast. Like,
really?
where I'm on this side. Yeah.
Yeah. Yay. This is so cute. So, okay. So a question that I have about when you help some of your small businesses or people on your webinars, what do you feel like they get wrong about storytelling?
I think people feel like they have to pretend. And one thing I learned from my theater background is acting is truth. So people think, you're an actor, you're good at like lying. I'm a terrible liar. I'm an absolutely terrible liar. I don't have to lie when I'm acting because you bring yourself to the character.
You know what? That makes so much sense because you got to feel something inside to cry. You have to bring up like a traumatic moment or something within yourself, right? To actually, for that to come across on screen.
And one of the things that I learned in conservatory was that, you know, if you judge your character, you will never be able to be that character because you won't be able to be on the inside because you're judging from the outside. So if you're like, oh, this character is stubborn, and it's like, okay, but do you consider yourself stubborn? And it's like, no, I'm loyal to my logic. Like, I'm going to keep being loyal to my logic until it no longer makes sense to me, right? I'm not stubborn. Like, prove me wrong. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
But until you prove me wrong, I'm like, no, this is the way to go. So if you judge your character and say, oh, that character is stubborn, it's that you're already disassociating yourself
with that.
And so all of that training that I had in theater helps me with telling my own story and branding and marketing because I'm not pitching this business, this outside thing. It's me. How do I insert myself into this story? And so with the people on the webinar, with the clients that I do media coaching for, a lot of it is I can tell right off the bat, I just have them start, like, just read what you would normally read, tell me what you normally do. And it always feels like a performance. Like they're sitting here and like, oh yeah, you know, I want to do this. So my business is about, it's like, okay, I already see what the problem is.
And I will say that too. I feel like I'm most comfortable when I'm just being authentic on camera myself. And sometimes it does become a performance. And when it becomes a performance, it doesn't come across as authentic.
Yep. It's like you get disconnected. People connect to the person in you.
Yeah.
But if the person in you isn't there, then it's like,
yes,
what am I watching? What is this?
Because it's like, I noticed that for myself when I bring in scripts. Right. And I'm like trying to read from a script and I'm like, this ain't right. I need to add in my jokes. I need to add in my ad-libs. I need to be myself. And you don't even speak in your normal tone because you're performing. So you help others find their voice, right? But what have you learned about protecting your own voice?
Oh, that is a good question. You're good at this. What have I learned about protecting my own voice? Ooh. Especially with the situation I went through in 2023, I've learned not to silence my own voice at the comfort of others.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I had been doing that unconsciously for a long time. I'm starting to realize what it stems from. And it was someone close to me in my life that I grew up with, revealing to me that they felt like I was trying to steal their shine growing up.
So you started to kind of like,
yeah, because it was like, well, I didn't mean to. Like, I didn't mean to hurt you by just being me. In fact, I emulated you. I looked up to you and wanted to do the things you were doing. Yeah, I was inspired by you. But because of who I am and how I am, I mean, I was valedictorian. I was number one in my class from kindergarten through 12th grade. Like, I was overachiever, like, you know, and so because of how I am, if I set my sights on something, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it way above. And so I started to realize that that was intimidating to people and that was making other people feel insecure or, you know, it was pulling out things in people that it was like, well, that wasn't my intention.
So it was projection of.
So I internalized their projection thinking that I actually was doing something wrong. So then I started dialing that back. And so when I was dealing with the friend I was dealing with, I didn't notice the ways in which, you know, thank God I have a mother who's a social worker and friends who are psychiatrists because they were able to point out to me like what ways there was emotional manipulation happening. And because I was already unconsciously dimming my light for other people, when someone intentionally was trying to make me dim my light, it was all the way out.
Yeah, it was easy.
Yeah. And when I got to that point, I remember we were having an argument and I was just crying because I don't yell. I grew up in a house where we didn't yell at each other. So instead I just cry. I instantly revert to tears when I get frustrated. And so I'm just crying. And I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. And that like literally echoes in my head because I remember when I said that out loud, I was like, how did I get here? And that was a wake up call. And like to think, well, that was like 2 years ago. And to look back on that and see how far I've come of literally having to go through the guilt of standing my ground, of having to tell people no, people that I love and care for who were asking me to do things. And I was just like, no. And then I would go cry later, like, oh gosh, they're going to be so mad at me because I told them no. It's like, Phil, stand firm, stand firm, stand firm. And now I'm just like, oh, no, can't do that.
Yeah. Boundaries.
Yep.
Well, congrats on that, because that's one of those things that we don't give ourselves enough credit for. And it makes such a big difference in everything else that we do. And it's a habit that you had to like learn, and a skill that you had to form and grow just based off of like recognizing that if I give myself away to everybody else,
there's nothing left for me.
There's nothing left for me. Yeah. So congrats on that. I like to hear that. So we're talking about, voices and staying authentic. But for you, what stories matter most right now?
Stories that highlight truth, because I could go down a rabbit hole of talking about all of the falsehoods in media. But I will mention there is a documentary that I suggest everybody watch. And it's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. And I don't remember if it was like Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, but it's also on YouTube. I guess they created it for YouTube first, and then it got picked up by Netflix or Amazon. The one on YouTube isn't as good. It doesn't have as much, it's not as fleshed out. But if you don't want to subscribe to Amazon Prime, then watch it on YouTube. But in the documentary, it talks about how this woman's dad was, just an overall nice guy. She's like, I remember him giving $5 to a homeless man who happened to be Black. And these are, white people. She's like, he just was an overall nice guy. And then he just slowly started getting more hate-filled and more racist. And she didn't know what was happening.
Oh, wow.
He was listening to right-wing talk radio. In the 80s with Rush Limbaugh, there was a concerted effort to skew the country more right.
Okay.
Because the country was around President Carter and everything, the country was actually more blue. And so there was a concerted effort of how do we launch a propaganda campaign that will skew the country more towards the other side. And it's been going on for over 40 years now using media. And it started with right-wing talk radio, and they literally would just make up lies. And then with talk radio.
Fox.
So that's where Fox News came from.
Yeah.
And so back then there was no social media and all of that. So if you're listening to talk radio on your way to work and on your way home, that's all you're getting. And so it's programming you to just keep taking in those lies and take them in as truth. And so then what they started doing was every Wednesday, they would have a meeting where they would bring together all of the right-wing media hosts, and they would come up with their lies or come up with the talking points that they would use. And then they would go on their platforms and they would say the same talking points. So now you're hearing the lie enough times.
Yeah.
It feels like truth.
It feels like the truth. Because that's what most people say. If everybody's saying the same thing, then it must be true.
But it's not. When they literally met every week, they would have these meetings. They would figure out what the 10 talking points would be. And then they would go and and this has been going on for over 40 years. And so there's been a programming that's been happening, and we're just now catching wind. So there's going to have to be a deprogramming or a reprogramming that happens. So finding all the ways to fact check, finding all the ways to basically do what they were doing, but with truth. So have a concerted, coordinated effort of debunking lies and putting out truth. So that for me is the biggest thing. Anyone who has a platform, anyone who has any type of voice or reach needs to be telling truth.
Well, that kind of transitions me over into another question that I have about like media and visibility. How do you feel like media is evolving for Black creators right now?
Media for Black creators is hard. And it's been hard for a while. Because even when I was working at the Griot, it wasn't profitable for the company. It was a necessary thing to have Black media. But with the way things are going now, between the pandemic kind of shifted things, and then the strikes shifted things, and now with AI shifting things. AI is
throwing a little wrench into the atmosphere, because I've been seeing a lot of deep fakes in terms of stories. On YouTube, there are whole channels dedicated to all of these stories about all of these horrific things.
Have you seen the backstory behind that?
No.
Oh my goodness. So, oh gosh, I forget the judge's name. It's a woman. She's married to Kenny Lattimore. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but she put out a video a couple of days ago where she actually is suing one of the creators of that because she was the victim of one of those, like, it's an AI voice and they're just making up stuff because that stuff gets clicks and they can monetize that. So they're basically profiting off drama and profiting off of lies and tearing down Black public figures. And so because, when you come for a judge, she did some investigating and she found out that these companies are actually not even based in the US.
Oh,
They're
wow.
based in like Pakistan and Russia and all over.
Not surprised.
Right.
Not surprised.
And so they're monetizing that content. And so she is launching a campaign to get YouTube to make it where you have to be verified in order to be monetized.
I have a 2-part question for you. So if someone were looking to start a media company, what advice would you give them? What would you tell them to start?
I never like discouraging people from dreams, but I always say don't do it. But with a caveat of make sure that your vision is very, very, very clear.
Okay.
Make sure that you know what parts of it can be monetized, because that's the part I'm still figuring out. So that's why I do the service-based stuff. So the PR consulting, the production, that's the stuff that I can put a price to. Right now, it's kind of hard to monetize media if you don't have a clear enough vision. And so I'm still figuring out exactly what media.
I mean, it's still your baby.
Yeah.
Still baby.
And that's why I have like the talk show now and launching the magazine, and it was a little bit of an exclusive because I haven't announced it anywhere else yet, but we're also doing a summit for March of 2026. So it'll be March 20th and the 21st. Yeah, because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have my own Essence Fest.
Yeah.
How it all started, right? So I've done it. I worked on Oprah's 2020 Vision Tour. Like, I've done large scale events and I've helped other people get their dream and their vision. So I'm like, I know what my vision is. Now I just need to do it.
I love that. Congrats on that. That's going to be amazing. And you are, I don't know if you're emceeing, but I mean, you already got a good host. If you want to just pay yourself out, out the back. I would love to listen. I would love to. All right. So we are going to wrap up. But before we wrap up, I have a really fun round that I want to do with you. It's our coffee shot round. And I want this to be quick and honest, no overthinking. You're really good on the fly, though. You're really good with
I'm an overthinker, but I am learning to be good on the fly.
Hey, what would your introvert anthem be if you had one?
Like a song that exists?
Yes.
India.Arie's Private Party.
Okay. India.Arie Private Party. I'm going to put that on the playlist. I'm going to have to listen to that on the way.
I'm having a private party, nobody here but me, myself, and my guitar. Me, myself, my angels, and my guitar singing, "Baby, Look How Far We've Come."
Okay. So you're like, me, myself, and I. Okay, what's your hype song? What's the song that gets you extroverted? What's your extroverted song?
So, I mean, I'm from New York, and my mother's side is Jamaican.
Okay.
So I love me some dancehall and reggae and soca and calypso. But for a while, it was Dutty Wine.
Okay. Yes. Okay. What is the best career advice that you ignored? Maybe you came back around to it, but initially it just didn't sink in.
Oh, man, a lot. I got to whittle it down to one. Probably the biggest one is don't do free work.
Okay.
I've been doing way too much free work.
Yes.
And I thought I knew better. I thought, I do the free work, then they'll eventually pay me. No, they got used to me doing free work and didn't want to pay me.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we'll pay somebody else, but we ain't going to pay you.
Right. You were the free girl.
Right. Put your stuff on clearance. They ain't going to never pay you full price.
That part.
All right. The pivot that you are most proud of.
The pivot that I'm most proud of is creating Outpower Media.
Awesome. I think that's the best one too so far. I mean, next we'll be saying the summit, an iteration. Okay. The biggest myth about introverts.
The biggest myth about introverts is that we don't like to talk. We are very talkative. We just got to be comfortable.
I hear that all the time.
Yep.
I hear that
if we feel safe and secure, you can't shut us up.
Okay. Yeah. See, and you know what? It's crazy. I love to find me an introvert. That's the most, I like to be in the room.
Because you're a safe space.
Yeah. I like to find the people who ain't talking to nobody and be like, what's up with you? Because I also feel like you guys are very observant and you hold like a wealth of knowledge. So I'm always like trying to find the people that aren't talking because I'm curious.
Everything.
Yeah, I'm curious about you. Okay, so what is your current mantra or affirmation?
Ooh, I have a few. Let's see. I would say, oh my gosh, I have like different ones every day. Let me come up with one right now that I would say for today. Today would be, your vision is never too big. Your vision is just the size it's supposed to be, no matter what other people say, because they are not you.
They can't see your vision. They can't see your vision. Okay, so I have some quick fires about legacy and lessons, right?
Okay.
So we're taking it a little different direction.
I like the alliteration.
What is the hardest leadership lesson that you've learned so far?
Ooh, the hardest leadership, I would say there's two.
Okay.
So one is that I'm a natural born leader. And I've been trying to prescribe myself as a follower. And I've had to unlearn that.
That's hard because you're like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I just want to fall in line and figure it out. And it's like, nope, you got to take charge.
And then the flip side of that is that now that I am taking charge, that there are methods of leadership. There are like things that you need to do as a leader. Like it's not enough to just be a leader. There are ways to lead. There are ways to manage. And I'm learning that.
That's a good one too. A lot of my conversations are with leaders or about leadership. And one of the previous conversations that I had, she told me that there's no I in leader, but there's an I in ship. And in leadership, people will leave if you're not leading them correctly. And that is what your main goal is. Like you're only as successful as your team.
Yep.
What do you feel like one small pivot someone can make today? What's one small pivot someone can make today?
The one you can make every day, which is just shifting to the positive, right? Because there's a lot of negative. And don't ignore it. Like, obviously, like, acknowledge those feelings as they come. Give them grace, give them, credence of like, okay, I feel you. And then pivot into, okay, so now what's the flip side of that? What's the lesson in that? What's the thing that God is trying to reveal to me in this moment?
Don't stay in that.
Yep.
Reframe. Okay.
And process it. Like, don't push it off either, because that's even worse. If you keep pushing,
don't avoid it. Don't avoid it.
Process it, and then pivot into, okay, so now what do I learn from that? What do I get at? What's the other side of that?
Awesome. I love it. Last but not least, what do you want our media company to represent in the next 5 years?
I want it to be something that someone can sit in the audience and say, I was at the 5-year anniversary of the Our Power Summit, and I came away with so much, and I built this community, and I can't wait to go back next year.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for the conversation today. This was amazing. I'll make sure that I tag you, Our Power Media, as well as your webinar series in the description. Thanks, guys, for chatting and sitting in with us today. And I'll see y'all on the next coffee chat. All right. Bye.